next to me. I'll take you away, away. Turn this place into a private getaway. Getting old. I have no clue if this review is coherent or not, but we're gonna pray to God that it is. So hey, how's it going? How's life? My name is Sophia. Welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I am going to be doing a book review, a series review, if you will, on the Chronicles of the Bitch Queen by K.S. Veloso. I recently read book 3 in the series and I loved it, and so I thought it would be fun to do a series review. I'm kind of nervous because I've never done a dedicated review on my channel before, but we shall see how it goes. Alrighty, so the trilogy consists of 3 books. The first book being the Wolf of Oren-Yaro, the Ikessar Falcon, and the Dragon of Jin-Sayeng. In the first book, we are following our main character Talien, who is the queen of this small nation island known as Jin-Sayeng. On the day of her coronation, her husband actually abandons them, and so she is left to rule the land on her own. Until one day she gets a note from the Empire from her husband telling her that he wants to meet up. And so she travels to the Empire to meet up with him, and our story goes from there. My favorite character in this story is Talien. Talien is known as this ruthless ruler who exiled her husband, and as a result she's given the moniker the Bitch Queen. But what I really loved about her character arc is that we get to see her develop beyond just that title. We get to see her love for her family, especially her son, as well as her love for her country and how that affects all the decisions she makes. I also really like the way that intention versus impact was explored with her character arc. So Talien as a person, she believes in doing stuff for the greater good, and so we get to see her make decisions that even though we as the audience might not agree, we understand why she's doing it. And it's so interesting because Talien as a character, she's not a good person. Like, this is a morally gray world, and so she has to do stuff that is morally irrehensible. I think that's the word. She is willing to kill, she is willing to maim, murder, brutalize whoever she has to, as long as it means protecting the people in her life that she cares about. What I really loved about the story is that even though we are in Talien's head and we understand her reasoning as to why, at no point did it feel that the author was trying to justify her actions. It felt like, hey, this is the world and the society that she grew up in, and so these are a necessary evil, basically. And even though she is a murderer and a tyrant in some aspects, she's also a precious murder baby. Like, we get to see her be tough and brutal, but we also get to see her soft side, which I really love. That dichotomy, is that the correct word? That contrast. And I really love that contrast between the two aspects of her personality. Talien is also a mother, and so a lot of the decisions she makes are also based around the well-being of her son. Her son is so important to her. So like, if you're looking for a story with a protagonist who's a mother, I would recommend picking this up. Another character that I really loved and adored was Kine. He is a criminal living in the Empire, but he is a con artist with a moral code, and I just love those types of characters. He's very witty, and the banter he has with Talien is just so sweet to me, and I'm not gonna lie, I was shipping them from the moment he appeared on page, because like the banter was just a plus. I do feel that Kine does get a lot of character development. He gets the most character development after Talien, and the other characters are kind of just sideshows, if you will. But yes, I really love learning about his past and the reason why he does the things he does. And that is one thing I noticed that K.S. Veloso does really well with all of her characters. I know specifically for Talien and Kine, we get a deep dive into their trauma and how it affects who they are as people today. But even with the side characters, we get to see bits and pieces of their past and their trauma and how it affects them. And I thought that that was really well done. In terms of plot, I would say that this is a very plot heavy story. Like from the first page, we hit the ground running and it is non-stop. So if you are a plot driven reader, I would recommend picking this up. If you are a character based reader, I would still recommend this. If you love Talien as a character, you're gonna love the story regardless, because I am a character-based reader and I adored Talien. I adored her husband, not her husband. I adored Kine. And so despite the whiplash that was occurring, I still had a really good time reading this story. It is full of twists and turns and betrayals and shocking revelations non-stop from page 1 up until the epilogue of the very last book. And so if you like that fast pace, if you love plot twists, if you love all of those, if you like political intrigue, I would recommend picking this up as well. Also, if you like adventure stories, I would definitely classify this as an adventure story, because throughout the entire series, Talien is looking for something or someone. And I think that it is interesting how K.S. Veloso explores that. So in terms of world building, this is a pre-colonized Filipino inspired fantasy story. So if you're a person who's looking to get into some more non-traditional, and by traditional I mean white fantasy stories, I would recommend picking this up. But like, if you're gonna pick it up, be mindful and be respectful of the cultural influences that go into the story. Like, don't pick it up expecting a Caucasian fantasy, you know? That's a thing that happens a lot on booktube and book Twitter, where people will complain about how the aspect of the story, how certain aspects of the story aren't familiar to them. And so like, if you're looking for something familiar and you're used to like your European fantasies, feel free to stick to that. But if you are willing to keep an open mind and try something new, then I would recommend picking this up. I believe I said this before, but I would consider this a morally gray world, a morally gray society. Jin-Sayeng is a country that has been ravaged by political conflict and wars, and that definitely shows throughout the story. Nothing good ever happens. It's kind of grim dark, I would say, but for me personally, it's subjective, I know, but for me personally, I don't think that this was as grim or as dark as other fantasies I've read, but it is on the more grim, dark side of the spectrum. In terms of the fantastical elements, they were fairly light throughout the entire series up until the 3rd book. So in terms of world building, I feel like K.S. Veloso does a lot of descriptors with food. If you're a person who enjoys world building and you enjoy food, I feel like you would like it, because like the descriptions of the foods are very detailed, and not gonna lie, a lot of the times it made me kind of hungry. And that was one thing I noticed that she kept throughout the entire series. In terms of like the magic system is very soft. The fantastical elements in general are pretty light, and they don't really come into play until the third and final book where shit hits the fan. And so like if you're looking for like a hard magic system and a heavy handed world building, I don't know if you would like this story, but it couldn't hurt to try it out. In terms of the writing style, I found that for the majority of the story, the writing style was very simplistic and fairly easy to get into. But I will say there are these long stretches of very purple prose. There are like these long stretches of inner monologue that our main character has, where the writing becomes very purple prosy, very lyrical, and it's very heavy-handed in my personal opinion. I didn't really notice this as much when I was listening to it via audiobook, but when I read the third book physically, I did notice it a lot more. And personally, it didn't really take away from my enjoyment of the story. But yeah, if you're a person who likes simplistic writing style, but maybe you want to get into more dense purple prose writing styles, I feel like this would be a good place to start, because even though it's there, it doesn't overtake the story. And speaking of inner monologue, I thought that the narrative choice was fairly interesting in this book. So the way that the narration works is that somebody is telling you the story. You're getting the story from Talian's perspective. And that shows, because oftentimes a sequence will be happening and Talian will break that fourth wall to tell the reader how she felt about that particular scene or whatever it was that happened to her during that time. And I thought that was fairly interesting, and I really liked how her inner monologue came kind of full circle towards the end of the series. I can't really say how because it would be a spoiler, but I thought that it was well done. In terms of themes, I wouldn't say that this story in general is particularly theme heavy. I did notice some themes here and then, but once again, I'm not a very theme driven reader, so I probably didn't notice as much themes as I could have. But one theme that really stuck out to me was how Veloso explored how decisions made by the rich and powerful affect the weak and the powerless. And I really like that in stories. I love it when fantasy books deal with the consequences of war and the consequences of decisions made by the elite. Because oftentimes in fantasy is that you'll have like these almighty powerful characters make these decisions, but we don't really get to see the impact that those decisions have on the regular people. And K.S. Veloso did a really good job of reminding the reader constantly, hey, these are the rich and powerful people, and this is how their decisions, their wars, this is how it affects the farmers, this is how it affects the poor people. And I thought that that was very well done. And it's so interesting because we get to see the mindset of the rich and powerful, and they know that the decisions that they're making are shite. They know that it affects the poor people and that it affects them as well, but in their mind it's justifiable because either they want power or because in their mind it's for the greater good. And I thought how she explored characters that were doing certain things for the greater good, I thought that those characters were fascinating, and I think she did a really good job with that. So that is my review for Chronicles of the Bitch Queen by K.S. Veloso. Hopefully this review was coherent. This is my very first time doing a dedicated review. Not gonna lie, it was kind of a challenge. But yes, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Comment down below, let me know, do you guys plan on reading the series? If you've already read it, feel free to tell me what you thought of it. But yes, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope to see you guys soon with another video, and until then, I will see you soon. Bye!